Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating the Latino community about entrepreneurship, investing, and business.
Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another episode to the Latin Wealth Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, just a little background about this segment of the show. This is Wealth Wednesday. We put out a new episode every single Wednesday where we're talking about recent news, things that are going on in the world, and how it pertains to the Latino community. So again, if this is your first time, thank you for tuning in. And if you are consistent guests, if you guys can do us a huge favor, you guys already know you're going to get a lot of value from these episodes. So if you can share this episode with one other person that needs to hear this information, it would mean the world to us. And with that being said, we're going to jump into these topics today. First and foremost, Nvidia. We're going to jump into Nvidia. This is the stock and a company that we have been talking a lot about. And they have recently announced a 10-to-1 stock split. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's all good. We're going to cover it. We're going to dive into it and what that means and the impact on how that can affect the industry, right? In addition to that, we're going to be talking about Argentina's recent inflation challenges. We also spoke about this recently, but there's some new things that are coming out that, how it's affecting local people in surrounding countries. This inflation thing is really getting pretty crazy. And lastly, we're going to be hitting on a $2 billion project that's going to be hitting Puerto Rico that will include luxury hotels, branded residents, and a private airport, and some couple other crazy things. We're going to be diving into this story and really who is the mastermind, who's the group of people that are putting this together. So stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about that. As always, welcome to another episode to Wealth Wednesday. Ready to jump into this episode. Jeremiah, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. We got a lot of good topics today. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, get to it. So first off, Nvidia. So if you guys don't know, we actually did a couple episodes about Nvidia, but we just want to quickly recap about who they are, right? So Nvidia creates the GPU and it's really the chip maker when it comes to a lot of these AI platforms, these gaming platform, creative designs, autonomous vehicles, and robotics. They create the chips to these different platforms and these different services, all right, and products. So last Wednesday, Nvidia announced its plans to split its stock for the first time since July 2020. All right. Since really in the last 4 years, the stock has gained more than 800% in the last 4 years. 800%. I mean, it's absolutely crazy the growth of this stock and the company. And so, with that being said, NVIDIA announced that its board of directors had approved a 10-for-1 forward stock split. So, now what that essentially means is if you owned one NVIDIA stock, that's now going to split into 10. All right. So, stay with me here. So, the price of the stock will roughly drop from, so right now it's hovering just about over $1,100.
Mhm.
With this new split, it's going to split down to about around $100. We'll see after the dust settles. So yes, pretty crazy. Um, Jeremiah, what are your thoughts about this? When you first heard the news, and obviously earnings, they beat earnings and they excelled at that. So what are your thoughts about all this in the company and whatnot?
Yeah, Nvidia beating earnings was no surprise. Obviously, you said 800%, so it's not like we didn't know they were going to beat their earnings. I think the first quarter, these guys are like, I think it's almost 200 billion, I mean, excuse me, $200 million of market cap. I think it's like every 2 or 3 hours or something crazy, right? So they're almost hitting like $2 billion a day or something. So they're catching up to the big guys, which is of course Apple and Microsoft. Pretty soon they're saying that Nvidia could be vying for that number 2 spot with Apple kind of fighting Apple again. So, we'll see where they go. But this is no surprise. I was excited because usually what happens in the stock split is you get that 10-to-1 split, and then the next thing you know, it increases liquidity and the investors, it appeals to those investors. So you end up getting more money, even though you took it from like 1,100 in Nvidia's case, $1,100 to $100, you get in more retail investors and more people are excited to actually jump in because the prices drop now. It ends up going back up. And so where you may have had, a 10-to-1, let's say you had one share of Nvidia, now you have 10, you still keep the amount of money that you have, right? So you don't lose any money. That's the big thing. You don't lose any money. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to lose money. No, you don't lose any money. You just get, it's spread out over 10. Now, what happens is when the people jump in and the other retail investors jump in, as that increases, now your price goes up. Those shares go up. Now you have the opportunity to gain more money than what you had, and the overall stock looks more appealing to people. So Nvidia is, I don't know, man. It's starting to become that miracle stock. We're looking at the S&P, and I was like, dang, there's really only like 4 or 5 stock that's like holding up this whole thing up. Because you look at the rest of it, and it's not so pretty. But there's like 5 stock that's holding up, and Nvidia is one of the biggest ones. So let's see where it goes. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, 100%. And now, like you said, this is going to invite a lot more retail investors, right? So if you think about it, the current price of the Nvidia stock is around $1,100 just for one.
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
most people, they can't afford that. That's just too much.
That's not
But if you
realistic.
can drop it down to $100, around $100, that's going to invite a lot more people. And the people that felt like, man, I missed the boat or whatever, they can feel like this is a great time to invest in the company. Um, yeah, I mean, this is, and like you said, the price or the amount that people have is not going to decrease. I was reading and I came across a good analogy where it's essentially like a pizza, and instead of you getting one
Mm-hmm.
slice, like chopping that slice up into 10, it's the same
Mm-hmm.
pie, it's the same pizza, it's the same amount. You just getting more pieces. That's it.
You live in New York, you get the big slices of pizza. But imagine having just one whole pizza. You can't share that very well. But if I chop it up into those 10 pieces, right now I can share it. I still got one pizza, but I can share that and it's more appealing. I can probably sell some of those pieces of pizza and I make money off of it, get more money than what I paid for it. That's essentially what's happening here. You chop it up into smaller pieces, it's more appealing. You get more money in, and the people that own the pizza already, the value of theirs goes up. That's, a little quick analogy, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great analogy.
100%. 100%. So I'm curious, in your opinion, where is the cap on this company? Like how much more room for growth, for the people that are like, look, okay, that's great, $100 a share, but
Mhm.
I don't, am I gonna see the same growth, 800%? That just sounds like you said, a unicorn. We may not get that same amount, but what are your thoughts about people wanting to jump back in or jump into it for the first time once it splits?
We have to look at technology and obviously how it's adapted. We all know that it takes a little bit of time for stuff to come in, people to adapt that technology into their normal everyday use. But you're starting to see more, everyday uses of AI technology. So it's starting to be used by more people. So the market share is limitless on that because think about it. Just in your circle, everyone that's in your circle, if you ask them, not all of them use Chat GPT, right?
True.
Not all of them are using, the actual reality, inverse reality, and how do they actually the reality AR and VR? Not everybody's using that type of stuff, but those things are growing. Not only just gaming and stuff like that, but uses for like military and those type of things. So all this stuff is growing. So there's no limit on that. That's number one. The
Hmm.
number two thing is Nvidia just has to find solid sourcing of the actual, resources that make up the chips. Obviously, Taiwan is always a heavily debated and a heavily geopolitical. It's always stuff going on over there, right, with China. So, what happens if Nvidia finds sourcing on this side of the world? We talked about Argentina, South America. If they can get some sourcing from there, then it's limitless market cap because then there's not going to be, any limits to its growth. A lot of the limits to how much Nvidia can grow is, caused by the relationship with TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, and then the sourcing of stuff. Because if you can't source the material to build your chips, then you're kind of halted a little bit, right? You can't build as much, you can't get as much out. Logistically, you're kind of held back. So that's going to be the two big things. There's really no limit. It's just those are a couple things that kind of may slow it down, but you'll see this again. It'll probably get up. I could see it doing 500%, five,
Mm,
600%. I mean, it's not like you've totally missed the boat. Maybe it's not, it won't get up 800% again, but I mean, 600%, you've made a ton of money. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think two things to keep in mind based on what you said is, look, uh, we're always thinking long term, right? We're thinking 5, 10 years down the
sure.
road. So I think that's important for people to understand. Like, man, they think the last 4 years, man, am I going to get another 800% in 4 years? We don't technically know, but the thing is, we always want to invest and be strategic and think 5 moves ahead, right? Think a couple years down
Sure.
the line. Have that
Yep.
mentality when you're looking at these different companies. And I also think it's really interesting that, when the dust settles, we think the price is going to be around $100. I mean, that's cheaper than AMD. And I think it's even
Mm-hmm.
cheaper than Taiwan Semiconductor. So this is a
Yep.
bigger company and it's a cheaper price. So I'm curious to see how AMD is going to come back and what they're going to do about that. What moves they're going to make. If they're Are they going to make any partnerships, right?
Partnerships are going to be key. I know Intel was up a little bit, and they said they want to get back to being the leaders in the space of actually, chipping and software and hardware creation. So we'll see. Maybe an AMD Intel, collaboration. Maybe
Hmm.
that would work. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. They're definitely, but I do believe the gap is so huge between AMD, which is the second leading, company when it comes to chip making.
Hmm.
That gap is so huge. They're gonna have to do something and make some type of key relationships to try to make things happen. So we'll see where they get to. This is big news
100%.
though.
It is
Nvidia doing that split, that was huge.
100%. Speaking about partnerships, the Rubin brothers have bet
Hmm.
on have bet on a $2 billion project in Puerto Rico. All right. So the Rubin brothers and Three Rules Capitals filled a master plan for more than $2 billion development in Puerto Rico with its own private airport and the view of the beautiful Caribbean Sea. All right. So this project is called Incencia,
Mm-hmm.
and this will pretty
Mm-hmm.
much include a luxury hotel room, branded residence, and this is going to be on the west side of the island. All right, so the west side of the island. And so as I'm digging around, and Jeremiah sent me this link, and I'm like, man, who the heck are these Rubin brothers? Who are these people? So I had to do my little due diligence, and David Rubin and Simon Rubin are British businessmen who are billionaires. And I don't know how credible this source is, but I think they're top five wealthiest family in the UK, right? And so the Rubin brothers is a leader in private equity, real estate investment, and development. And like I said, they are from the UK. What else? Man, I mean, look, they kind of mapped out what this site's going to include. More than 2,000 acres of land will feature two golf courses, horse racing, a bilingual K to 12 school, and it'll be rolled out in 5 phases, with the first phase expected to be completed in 3 years after starting construction. This is crazy. I mean,
Yeah, I think
I
it's
have
amazing.
so yeah, yeah. Go ahead,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say I have a lot of questions. Um, I do have a lot of questions I would love to ask these brothers, but what are your thoughts about this?
Obviously, anybody that's coming from Western European, USA, investor wise, remember one thing that it starts off is we talked about it with Dean a couple episodes back, right? Is the
Hmm.
actual tax subsidies that these people are getting.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah,
taxes when they come in and they develop. So they're investing a huge amount of money. So we'd have to look at their financials from 2023, right? Or maybe the first quarter of this year to see any major purchases or major influxes of income because you plan this out. They've probably been planning this for obviously last
yeah,
couple years.
yeah.
So you're trying to write something off, or there's a massive amount of money right, that you're trying to write off, or something that you're trying to infiltrate, or money that you're going to be getting through an acquisition or something, and you need to put that money, it needs to go somewhere else. This is just a master move when it comes to business. I think you can obviously love the island, but the tax reasons and the tax purposes on Puerto Rico make it super attractive, which is why they did it, right? To bring money in. And then I also think it's pretty, I don't know, pretty telling that they didn't put it in the normal area where people put stuff, which is
Hmm.
in the metro area, the San Juan metro area. They actually put it on the west side of the island, because the west side of the island could be Mayaguez, it could be
Hmm.
Aguadilla,
Hmm.
Arecibo. We'll see where they put it at. But the stretch of land, and that being on the west side of the island is going to bring tourism and stuff over to that side of the island, which is very beautiful. We talked about it last time you visited and stuff. You're like, man, we went to the west side, and it's really nice. You know, the water, the different like historical sites and that side as well. And the land was probably cheaper.
Hmm.
So
100%.
got got pretty cheap land, building this thing up. And I'm trying to see, I wonder what incentives it has, or what actual rules or stuff they put in place to make sure that native Puerto Ricans are actually
Hmm.
employed at this place.
That's
And then
big.
also um, the actual gentrification, or the area around this area. What is the price? What is it going to do to the native, Puerto Ricans that live in this area? Is it going to increase their property taxes, which most people know they don't really have
Hmm.
property taxes? They're going to create property taxes so you can subsidize this thing. Like, what is the plan for the people that already live there, and how is it going to affect them? Is it going to raise their property price? Maybe that's good for them. They want to sell. So just a couple of things. I'm like you, I have questions, but that's just a
Yeah.
couple of things that kind of come to my mind in the beginning.
So, I mean, looking at it from a Boricua's point of view, do you like
Mm-hmm.
this? What are your thoughts about it? Like you're breaking it down from the business aspect, which it sounds
Yeah,
good, it looks good. If they can, like you said, if they can
yeah.
employ locals, I think that's beautiful. Another school sounds
Mm-hmm.
great. More tourism to that area. I mean, that's amazing as
Mm-hmm.
well. Like you said, I was out there at the end of last year, and yeah, I mean it's a totally different vibe from the east side. Totally different vibe.
Total,
You
totally.
know, you know what I'm saying? It's like people they drive a way slower pace of life. And I mean, look, like you said, it depends on where they put this thing because there is space out there. There is land out there that's
Yep.
not being occupied. But as a Boricua, how do you feel about this?
Just from the space of me looking at it being good for people or bad for people, you know, myself and Dean, we kind of lean on the same side of the line. I'm
Hmm.
trying to put, I'm trying to get political, but I definitely feel what like he feels in a lot of things. It's okay, but I just think there has to be rules that are set in place to keep it governed
Hmm.
properly. Because what ends up happening is most of the time when we bring investors into the island that aren't us, or people that aren't from the island, what ends up
Okay.
happening is the people from the island get shortened, right?
Yep.
There's always some type of downside for us that are there and that are from there, versus the people that come in and they can do whatever they want and they can just leave, right? Versus you have to stay there, your family's all there. And some of the changes that end up happening and the influxes totally change your whole trajectory of your family tree. And
Hmm.
this person can just leave and do whatever, and you're stuck there, and your family's still there, and you have to deal with it. So, I just think from a Boricua standpoint, what I would like to see is I would like to see these $2 billion plays and these creations created by Puerto Ricans. Like, I'd like to
Hmm.
see Mark Anthony go back and put tons of money, and Jennifer Lopez. Like, I like to see people that are of us and from us go back and reinvest into the people instead of outsiders. And that may sound bad or whatever. Like, no, well,
Hmm.
everybody, different things or whatever. But it's just kind of based upon the history of things. Usually these things don't end up well for the native Puerto Ricans, right?
Hmm.
So I kind of would rather see some of us come back and do more, but we'll
100%.
see where it goes. If they keep them in check and things are kind of already laid out and they can help them and help the natives, like we said, jobs, development of schools. If it brings more tourists to that area, maybe brings more business to the airport that's on that side. There's some good things, but it's gonna have to be in check. They got to keep them at bay, kind of.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly because look, if you think about it, like you said, people that are coming out from a different country, they are coming in with the mindset of like it's business.
Yeah.
Excuses, it's just business. Opposed to you having somebody natively from the island, they're gonna look out for their community a little bit more than somebody else would. So, no, I agree with that 100%. I mean, like that kind of sparks another discussion about like, these well-known Boricuas that why aren't we coming together and doing something? That's like a whole nother podcast.
You know what? And when we
Yeah,
cover that, that's going to be part two with Dean. We're going to have to bring Dean
yeah,
back to go part to go. I know that's his
that's his
realm. He
thing.
dives
Yeah.
deep into that.
He
Hmm.
dives deep into that. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all rolls out. I will say I have this one question for you. Do you think this could be a step towards statehood? Maybe do you think maybe these people from the UK they see like, okay, this could potentially become a state. We can get a higher return back on our investment. What are your thoughts about that?
So the push for statehood is going to depend on who gets in office in 2024.
Hmm.
Um, the status quo, right, which is the way that things are right now, is more supported by uh, the blue side, the Democratic side. Republicans are more pushing for statehood. So you kind of got to see there's a whole backlay of things that
Hmm.
occur, right?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. We'll see who kind of gets in the who gets into the presidency. I think it's just business as usual for people. And
Hmm.
what's crazy is actually it not being a state, even though you can't tax it the way you want to tax it. Think
True.
about this big, huge hub over on the west coast of Puerto Rico now. So there's more imports that have to come in, which is still more taxes for the United States because of the Jones Act. So they're going to make more money off of this with Puerto Rico remaining how it is versus a state. If it was a
Hmm.
state, there's no
True.
taxes, right?
Yeah.
It's just the state tax that they do, and the actual Puerto Rican government gets that money, or whatever the people in the Puerto Rico. It's a whole nother conversation, but
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like literally, I think that America makes more money keeping it the way that it is.
Mm.
If you get this new big hub and all this and all these things are needed, all this and shipments of imports and stuff have to come in, I'm going to keep it like it is because I make more money off of, it has to go touch Miami before it comes to,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
Puerto Rico. So
Interesting.
we'll see.
Interesting. We'll see. Definitely. We'll keep you guys posted and updated on Nvidia and this project as well. I think we're going to wrap it here. Great episode. A lot of great information as always. If you guys can share this episode with one other person that needs to hear this, it would mean the world to us. And not this Friday, but the next Friday, we're going to have another guest on the podcast, another interview, virtual interview. Um, with someone who had a development and construction company out here in Texas, and he exited the company for $100 million. So, dope conversation.
I love it.
You definitely check that out next Friday. And as always, the Latin Wealth family. Catch you guys next week. Peace.